to have Janice, and don't ask me to spell her last name except spam. So anyone who has ever attended Sharkfest knows Janice. Janice needs no introduction, and I often said that we go to Sharkfest because of Gerald, but we really stay and have a great time because of Janice. She takes care of us. So let me go ahead and introduce my panel, and then I switch over to Janice. Good morning, Paul. Good afternoon. Good evening.
Yeah, it's afternoon on a very dark, horrible, cold, and rainy afternoon here in the UK. So,
well, typical UK weather. London weather.
We're not having a good time. We had a sunny week last week, but this week it's turned a bit awful. So,
and good afternoon, Tim. Lunchtime for you.
Hello, everybody.
Okay. Hey, Paul has some question for Janice, but before Paul asks the question, Tim, why don't you take a minute or two and introduce Janice to us, as if she needs introduction.
Yeah, I mean, Janice doesn't need an introduction. We nicknamed her Mama Sharkfest, or Mama Shark, as some people do it. I think Sharkfest is better because she's not a shark. She's a very nice person, and actually an incredibly nice person. She's been around the industry since the early 90s. I guess that's about right. And she started when she was 12, so that makes her only 24 now. So, but she is the backbone behind Sharkfest. It started 7 years ago, and she has, I remember the first one very well, and she's turned it into an extremely professional event. People love it. I think the only complaint I've ever heard is that we can't do 1,000 people instead of 300. And that may change in the next few years, right, Janice? Now she's an incredible person. Just runs that show with great kindness. A lot of people forget that she's as technical as anybody else in that show. And I don't know, can't say enough about her, either as a person or as someone who takes an incredible event and makes it even more incredible. And this year we got a new venue, the Dominican College, and it's going to be incredible. It's going to be great. Vince back to talk. Vince Cerf, the real founder of the internet. Al Gore wasn't available. And but Janice is one of those people that when you first meet her, it doesn't take you but about 2 seconds to know how wonderful she is.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I noticed, what makes the Sharkfest such a great show is that most people there are very uncomfortable in front of the camera, including Janice. they're just more comfortable making things work. So with that, I'm going to turn it to Paul. Paul, ask your first question, and then Janice, remember to mute yourself when you answer. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay. So, hi, Janice. I echo what Tim said. I always remember that you dug me out of a hole when I had about 3 boxes of books to transport from a storage room down to one of the presentation areas, and you somehow managed to find me a trolley and everything to get this done. Otherwise it could have been a bit embarrassing, and I would have been transporting about 70 books back to the UK. But anyway, aside from that, I've got some sort of lightweight questions to ask you, Janice, but I'm going to start off with a heavyweight one. Bearing in mind that last year we had a couple of presentations from yourself on Cascade Pilot, and we had a presentation from Gigamon, and there may have been other product presentations. I didn't attend them all. I'm interested to know, has Riverbed's involvement changed what you can do at the event? Is it going to restrict what we can have presented at the event? Is it going to change the complexion of the event at all? So let's start with that one.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Mr. O'Neill, for the lovely introduction. Lovely to see you, Paul, Benny, always a pleasure. Mr. O'Neill, the event this year is going to be special because you, finally, are going to be in the flesh at the event. And that's going to help make it the most wonderful of all. So.
Yeah.
For everybody out there, just so you know, this event would not have ever happened without Mr. O'Neill. He's the one who helped me put it together from the get-go. He's the one that helps me every year. He's the one that stays by me and gives me support along with everybody else. And finally, in this 7th year, he's actually going to be able to make it for the show for the first time. So we're all very excited about that.
Thank you.
So that wasn't by way of dodging your question, Mr. Offord. You know, Riverbed. This is. I can't say what will happen in the future, Paul. But so long as I'm drawing breath and having anything to do with Sharkfest, I will protect the event as an event that Tim and I and others started, which is an independent event, totally vendor neutral. We have a sponsor. You know, Riverbed pays a salary to me, to Gerald, gives Gerald a nice warm place to sit and continue to evolve the project. But that's, you know, as far as I'm concerned, and I repeat the message repeatedly, that's their only involvement. You know, everything is hands-on. Sharkfest is totally in my purview at Riverbed. Any mistakes that are made at the event are mine. And, you know, anything that goes wrong is my, you know, it's my bad. When I, you know, do things like, you know, have presentations that are too vendor-centric, you know, one of my rules from the get-go, and Tim will remember, is that this is not a commercial event. It's an educational event. But sponsors help pay for the thing, so I can keep the registration fees low. So sponsors now are relegated to, including Riverbed, to a sponsor showcase one night of the event. So anybody who wants to hear a product message, who chooses to hear a product message, can go to that event, and vendors can talk them up, chat them up all they like. But during the course of the event, of course, networking will happen. But we try, and I emphasize every year that you know, sessions have to be vendor neutral. They're supposed to be Wireshark specific. They're supposed to be educational. They're supposed to help people, you know, better their understanding of the project and the, you know, the protocol analyzer and any complementary tools that are open source as well. But this is not a selling or marketing event, and Riverbed included. So again, Paul, as long as they keep me, you know, until they boot me out, you know, I'm going to protect what Sharkfest is with all my Sicilian rage, okay, if I need to. Does that answer the question?
I think it does. Don't get me wrong, I'm not, there's a reality here. I attended Sharkfest last year. I'm from a commercial organisation. If Advanced 7 didn't think there was some sort of commercial benefit for me to go there, they wouldn't pay me to go there. So, you know, there is a commercial, but it doesn't have to be overtly sales, you know, sales type of event.
But on the other hand, yeah, on the other hand, I mean, we were a vendor. I was representing a vendor once in the early days, and it's actually kind of refreshing to have an opportunity to kind of elevate yourself. Yeah. And to be able to speak, you know, as part of the community. Yeah. And I think that the mistake is that there are vendors who don't understand that, and they don't take that opportunity to speak to the users, yeah, without actually pushing products on them, and that's a big mistake that a lot of people use.
And may I interject too, Paul? Your product is an educational product. You know, it's not. You're not trying to. And you know, I know you have a commercial enterprise, but your commerce is something that actually is going to help the people with their knowledge transfer, with the understanding of the product. I consider that different, you know, and you're there to help inform the community and offer your service to help inform and lift other people up. So that's different from selling a switch or a router. No offense, you know, Benny or anybody, but it, you know, I know that, you know, infrastructure is something that people need to know about too if they're in network engineering, obviously, and what advances are there. But that can be confined to something else. You are an educational source. So that's different, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to just say, sorry, Danny, I was just going to say that, quite honestly, Janice, It's nice to hear you say that. And also, I think the thing is that even if someone like Cisco turned up and they presented something that was of interest to the wider community, I don't think anybody at the Sharkfest, of the Sharkfest audience would have a problem with that, as long as it doesn't turn into overtly advertising. I suppose one of the things I was slightly worried about was that if, say, someone like CompuWare had something to present at Sharkfest that wasn't promoting their product, but obviously there would be the CompuWare name on the slides, or at least on the somewhere on the participants list, would that then prove to be a problem to Riverbed by having one of their competitors there presenting, even though it might be presenting something that was of wider interest?
Okay, so this is a very good question, and obviously, you know, if I were to have the show populated by Riverbed's competitors, I would probably hear something about it. We do have, you know, competitors that are part of the sponsored, you know, group. If, again, in my request for presentations, I make it clear that the presentation has to be Wireshark centric. If they're you know, and understand who the audience is. If they're coming to just talk about, you know, a new piece of technology that they're coming out with, that's a no. But if they're coming to talk about, you know, how there's, you know, they have come up with a solution to a particular problem that Wireshark users are facing, or how they've come up with it, you know, so long as it's educating people to help them better their understanding of how they can use Wireshark, and if it's in conjunction with, you know, some other technology, that's fine. But if it's just to say, you know, all of a sudden, you know, people have this wonderful, you know, qualified audience, you know, in front of them, and all they want to do is to sell a product and hand out T-shirts, that doesn't work for me. So does that explain the distinction? I think if Cisco came in and Cisco wanted to talk about open, you know, about some open, you know, source project that they had going on that was relevant to the community, I'm all for it. Microsoft does that. They come and, you know, and do that every year, and there are others too. But no, if they're just coming to talk about a product, that's fine. But they have to. We restrict it now to the sponsor showcase.
Well, I think the key word here is that you mentioned that. Let me mute you first, Janice, for a little bit. I think the key point here is that, as you mentioned, this show is Wireshark centric, and so I think that even two competitors comes in, whether or not one of them is Riverbed or not, as long as they're providing a value to the community, I think they can work it out, and I think that it's been working out. Right. Okay, so let's continue with that. Since we have our investigative reporter, Mr. Paul Offord, on the line, why don't you go ahead and ask your second question, Paul?
Okay, second question for you, Janice. When I met with you last year, you hinted at the sort of timeline of how long it takes you to set up this event, and I think you said you did the event, you went on holiday for a month, and then you came back and you started the next one. Can you just give us a thumbnail sketch of how does this thing map out, and what are the milestones for you as you set this up?
Now that is a very key question. So, you know, this isn't my day job. I actually do business development for Riverbed, so this is something that's an avocation for me as much as anything. But you're right, Paul. I start worrying about the next Sharkfest as soon as the last one ends. So what I do is start, you know, looking for venues. I mean, I right away we have to look for venue. Like last year, we were at UC, and we were there for the last 2 years. But this year, they had to use the space for students. So we had to look for another venue. And as everyone knows, I like the educational setting just in terms of the gestalt of the conference, you know, just because of the atmosphere that it tends to engender for people. It's a very social, very low-key, very informal sort of venue, and that really restricts the choices. So really finding a venue is the first thing. And once I have that, then I start saying who's still talking to me, you know, from the possible presenter pool, you know, after the last Sharkfest, and then I try and start lining people up and getting them thinking about whether or not their schedules are going to allow them to to give me another week in June. The following June, I try and keep it to June so people are, always aware that, that there's a possibility that, that in mid-June they might be traveling to Northern California again. Because people have to plan that much in advance. And then I start, tweaking the website. I make sure that all the changes are, are done to the website, and then I start, just trying to make sure that I understand all the resources that I'm going to have, because that's an ever-changing sort of a landscape too. So that I know how much of my life I'm going to have to invest versus how many resources I'm going to have. So, does that give you an idea?
That does. Okay, so continuing. Oh, we've got Casey now. So continuing on the theme, what I wanted to ask you was, and I'm sure you've been asked this, and we asked Gerald last week. What about Sharkfest Europe? What about Sharkfest West Coast? Do you see it ever happening or being on the horizon?
Okay, so my plan was to try and have a Sharkfest EU in late September, early October this year. Now, I have to have some kind of buy-in. Even though Riverbed is, a hands-off host organization for this conference, I still have to have assistance from resources in the EU in order to do the event. So I've reached out. I've been reaching out for months to find out whether or not I have that kind of resource, and it's come down to my doing one last push, to see if I can get some people on board. If that's the case, then I'll be announcing either at Sharkfest or shortly after Sharkfest whether or not we can do a Sharkfest EU. I'd very much like to do one. Everybody would like to do one. Understand that whatever we start with, it would be a mini event. I would probably limit it to 100 people. We would probably just do it over a weekend, a Saturday and Sunday, because the Wireshark core developers that are in the EU can only give me, so many days during the year from their regular day jobs. So if I did something on the weekend, it's easier for them to come. So then they all want to come, and so I'd probably do something, smaller in scope, and then build it from there. And as far as the East Coast is concerned, I tried to look around for venues because the East Coast was a possibility after UC said no. I was thinking I was thinking 1,000 times about whether or not that might be a nice change, but I couldn't find a single university that would give me the time of day or space. So it wasn't for want of trying, but I just didn't have a venue, and we could. We can always go to a hotel. There are a zillion hotels I could go to, but I just don't want to do that. I'm just not ready to do that yet. So, and maybe it's time for me to rethink that. I don't know, but I think it would change the event in so many ways that I just don't want to do. I don't want to go there if I don't have to. Now, a nice conference center that had enough space to accommodate 300 people easily or more, as Tim is suggesting we might want to think about doing, is another. That would be a transition step, an acceptable transition step from my point of view, because then we would get all of the conveniences of a hotel, but we wouldn't have to have that kind of hotel sort of setting. But I don't know. You guys,
I know of some places where we could do that. The problem is that we all have to be converted to Buddhists before actually. But anyway.
I think my feedback on that, and I've only been to one, is I really liked the UC Berkeley experience, and I totally agree with you. It was just seemed like the right setting. It seemed to set the mind in the right state and everything. I'd much prefer that to doing it in a hotel.
Yeah. As thinking about it now, that has always been what's unique about Sharkfest, right? Is that his answer? I think the first one I attended was at Skyline College, something like that, way back when. So, Janice, let me ask you. It's been 7 years, right?
Right.
Yeah. Looking back, I mean, how did this happen? Who got you sucker into this little thing that we call Sharkfest?
Oh man, I got what I wished for, Danny. Okay, so in in 2007, I was hired by CACE Technologies to start Sharkfest and do business development for them. Now, if people don't know who CACE Technologies is, they were before being acquired by Riverbed, they were a company that hired Gerald Combs away from his bar in Kansas City to help build a company that was based on Wireshark enhancement products specifically. So they created technology that would fill in gaps that Wireshark would never really, or the Wireshark developer community would never get around to putting into the product. Things like a graphical user interface, things like the ability to open large trace files really quickly, to distribute Wireshark analysis around a network, things like that. So I had come to them after being EVP of WildPackets for 16 years, and having some knowledge, obviously, of the space. So Laura Chappell hooked me up with them, and they asked me to start Sharkfest, or they asked me to start, actually, they asked me to get the worldwide developer community together. They'd been coding together for over 10 years, and they'd never met each other face to face. So when I went there, they gave me free reign to just put on whatever conference I thought would make sense, or bring these guys together so that they could meet. They thought we'd just get together, bring them all, fly them all in from all corners of the world, and have dinner, and a few drinks, say hi, get to know each other, and then get back on their planes and go home. But I am not Italian for nothing. I said, well, why don't we just make this into a community thing? The user community would love to meet these guys, talk to them, give them their suggestions for how they might evolve the project to help everybody, and go from there. So then I called Mr. O'Neill, and he showed me the way to get this going. So we put together a session schedule that seemed to make sense. I got presenters, thanks to, again, Mr. O'Neill hooking me up and other people hooking me up. And we did actually the first one at Foothill, Dianza, which was a beautiful campus, but it was too small the first year. I mean, we had Vince Cerf, thanks to Tim again, doing the keynote. It was amazing. Beautiful room, beautiful campus, beautiful environment, but the classrooms were too small for the, we had that first year about 250 people. So we had to change venues right away if we were going to continue. Now this is the story, Danny, that I didn't tell you the other day. But there was a lot of resistance to doing Sharkfest the second time at CACE. They wanted my attention. Because they wanted my attention.
Because the first one was too successful? I'm sorry, I muted you again, Janice. Unmute.
I mean, because, we were getting, the company was taking off, they thought, my attention should be paid on the business development side of things. Maybe we weren't going to get the, maybe we would get more return by my putting my attention someplace else, but I resisted and I said, no. We're either going to do this or we're not going to do it. This is the whole idea. We have to have continuity to make it worthwhile. That's my time up. and so I insisted. We got started late planning that year, but it was another successful event. So we had almost 300 people the second year, even though we started late. And then from there, it was just it was a done deal that we were just going to continue it for as long as possible. So now we're at year 7. We've gone all this way, and I'm still living And thankfully, people are still indulging, me and agreeing to give their time freely. And, I just am amazed every year that people fly themselves here, they present. I can't pay anybody, you just come for the sake of seeing each other and meeting each other and and helping each other. I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm constantly amazed that it happens. It all falls together. I know it's well, it's really the community that does it. There's not one person, frankly. It's everybody coming together with with good cheer and goodwill and the idea that they're generously going to give of their time and knowledge to one another. So that's what makes it a success and why it keeps going. I'm muting myself then.
Okay, we'll turn it. Oh, he is back.
Yeah, I'm back. Okay, Paul. I just want to make a comment. I think that I remember the first year at Sharkfest, and I was the newbies. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't even know Tim that well, and I was amazed that that you have all these people there, and they seem to know each other, but they have never met. It's crazy. It was a crazy feeling. And then they were still talking about they were still talking about ethereal as opposed to Wireshark, because they're not used to the new name yet. So it was a funny feeling. Go ahead, Paul.
No, I wasn't sure. I thought you were. I thought your alarm went off to close the show. I thought you disappeared for a minute, so I was going to jump in. But
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
I haven't got much more to add. I think probably as we are coming towards the end, the one comment I would like to make after me questioning whether Riverbed could maintain their sort of independence here and or prevent themselves from becoming some form of censor, I think we have to say on this show, we have to thank them for supporting Janice and for supporting Gerald, because, I think that it's probably accelerated the whole Wireshark development. Whether we like it to go that way or not, the fact of the matter is that I think Riverbed supporting the whole movement is a great thing, and I'd like to publicly thank them for that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, I want to thank them for letting us have Janice, because without that commitment, that energy, that dynamo that she is, we wouldn't have Sharkfest. And I agree with Janice. Sharkfest is like Love My Tour. We're supposed to try to kind of stay in the middle of things and try to educate people. And I know a lot of people that have been to Sharkfest, more than a few dozen, and the comments have always been, wow, I wish it could have lasted longer, because it's not just an educational event, it's a social event. It's where people that have the same passions come together. And yeah, they're kind of camera shy. They're mostly, and there's no derogatory in here, but being a geek ain't a bad thing. I've been one for years, and I think all of us share that moniker. So yeah, Janice, you've done a great job. Riverbed, thanks for supporting an event that is totally classical yet totally unique, and we couldn't do it without Janice. I can guarantee that. And I kind of remember the first year when Betty and Janice got me hooked up to hear part of Vint's speech. But if you guys remember, I was in a hospital and I was pretty drugged up. I don't remember much of it. So Vint afterwards called me, and Betty, of course, and Janice afterwards called me and told me all about it. And I was just ecstatic. And when the second year went off, I know Janice and I had shared some concerns that the second year may not happen. That was euphoric to me, and I have been wanting to come for 7 years, and I'm delighted I'm going to make it. I'm really excited about it. I hope to see everybody there too.
Well, it's always nice to look back, because just to kind of give people an idea what 2007, if I remember correctly, was the first year, right? That was the year. 2007 is when YouTube had a time limit, and you couldn't put a video on YouTube more than 10 minutes, and it had to be low resolution. So today we put HDTV on it, and all. The reason I mentioned that is that Love by Two had always had the privilege of recording the sessions and putting on a website. And so I remember how difficult it was to record an hour and a half worth of presentation and finding a site that can host it with high enough resolution that they can see the PowerPoint presentation.
I think
but today is not a problem.
Yeah, I think there's probably some people out there who would have preferred that my session at Sharkfest was still censored to 10 minutes of low resolution presentation.
I doubt that, Paul.
I wonder if it's okay. We're coming up the half-hour mark. I wonder if I could ask the last question, or at least one of the question to Janice, which is to kind of turn the attention, the focus into her career as a as a marketing person, as a community builder for her companies, not just one but a bunch of them. And this kind of related to Sharkfest in the sense that we were talking about vendors, and also in the same way, Love My Tool. It turns out that some vendors get it and some vendors don't. Some vendors understand the importance of building a community first before selling products, and some vendors just have no idea. And I think Janice has done that well. She's done it in a very quiet way. Janice, do you want to comment on that and see if that there's some entrepreneurs out there that really ought to be learning this?
Well, thank you for that, Benny. I frankly don't know any other way to present technology, other than trying to build community around it. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm limited in this way, but trying to put people together that are of a like mind, trying to put together people that could in some way make, have an enriched life or again, be lifted up, their lives made better somehow by a technology, is something that I can easily promote. It's just never been a difficult thing for me. And I think that anybody who wants to promote a product doesn't go out and hammer, them over the head with, a message. I think the idea is to build consensus around something. I mean, if something is good, if technology is good, then people are going to want to know about it. You're helping. I see it as, people helping one another to understand how they can be more productive together, share knowledge. There's a certain amount of, again, there's a huge measure of generosity here. It comes into play. It's not all after a particular, dollar aim. Everybody can help each other and lift each other up if they share information, and if the technology is good and is going to help people to do better, then I think sharing that information is natural and something somebody would want to know about, and I have no problem, getting that message out. With help from my friends, a lot of help from my friends. Does that answer the question, Benny? I mean, I think younger people should definitely. I mean, networking seems to be the norm now. People really, there's community everywhere that I think younger people understand better than I ever did. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And sharing technology through networking events like Sharkfest and others, and other ways, in all of my positions, as at WildPackets, at other companies, Nobel, I just always would try and find opportunities to help people understand how their lives could be better through the technology that I was representing at that time. It was never a dollar aim. It was more a letting people know, and that's my bad probably. I probably could have been. I could have been somebody if I was always after, a dollar goal, but that's never been I'm not that kind of, I'm not built that way. I think community is the way to go.
Yeah, I think that As you were talking, it reminds me of like, there are many things I'm not good at, but one of the things I'm absolutely not good at is I don't know how to teach people to use chopsticks. I know since birth, right? It's my only way. So how do you teach something like that? And so I kind of put you on the spot by asking you to talk about community building because it's the only thing you know, and it's very apparent to us. But I think that but coming from the vendor side, again, I really want to get that message out, is that if you're a vendor, especially when you're a vendor trying to sell hardware and not just education, you really have to understand the value of Sharkfest, that this is not a place where you just pass around business cards. And I remember reading an article the other day, and someone says, so-and-so should do more sales and less marketing. That's like telling people, about breathing. You should breathe out more and not breathe in so much. I mean, the marketing and sales is one of the same. It's two of the, and it's all about to me, my experience running my own company, my peers' companies, is that it's really sales and marketing have one goal and one goal only, which is to find champions inside your company, outside your company. That's how you can be successful. So I think when people come to Sharkfest, if you're listening, you want to become a sponsor to Sharkfest, you have to understand that this is a venue. This is a very, very special venue where you are here to find champions for your products. And I think one of the messages Janice says is that, well, I'm not so good in talking about myself. Well, but look at how many people talk about you. And a company is successful or not because the salesman's ability to talk about the product, it's everybody else talking about the product. Right, Tim?
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. So
I think also this is the way to build lasting brand, isn't it? And value is, if you just go out for the quick kill and the quick sale and just sell whatever you've got and with no real belief or passion in it, then that'll work for a while, but it won't work for too long.
Yeah.
Those are the flash in the pans, and I've seen a million of them in my humble life. And commitment. A friend of mine once said the greatest honor one can be paid is that 10 years down the road, the guy that you sold something to will still speak to you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Janice. Any more questions and comments from either Paul or Tim?
I have one. Janice, thank you for everything you've done for me and for the community, and I do believe in the community. I do believe if anybody's on the Wireshark email list, every day people are asking for help, and it's no one says, give me your credit card number so I can tell you what, it's a community, and that is in a large part due to you, Janice, creating this, not only this educational community, but this sharing community. So thank you, Janice. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, we don't say that enough, Janice. Yeah, you should just keep muting yourself. This is the part where we thank you. Okay, Paul, and let's make that the last comment of the show. Yeah,
I haven't got much to add. I wish I'd have asked the question about the marketing one that you asked, but there you go. I just echo what Tim said. I think, quite honestly, it's considering how many sessions run in parallel at Sharkfest, and considering, I know Janice has some helpers, but really a lot of it falls to her. I think it's an amazing success considering, just how complicated it is as a show. It's like a three-ring circus or something.
Okay, I am going to unmute and just say one thing, fellas. The one thing I understand every day is how lucky I am to know you and so many people that have made my life a wonderful thing and continue to do so. And I love putting on this event because I get to hang out with people like you. So thank you.
Well, we'll see you in 10 days, right? Or maybe less than that.
Yes. I can't believe it, but yes. I think we might be able to pull up another.
I'm sorry, Tim. Go ahead, Tim. You were saying something?
No, I didn't say that. I was just listening. I was saying, okay. And look forward to seeing everybody in a few days. Be good, Janice.
Okay. Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Paul. Stay online. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Tim. and have a wonderful day. And there's no excuse not coming to Sharkfest. We'll see you then soon. Bye bye.